Welcome to Dawn of a Story. This is more than a podcast. It's a place where we speak the truth, tell the stories that shape us, and honor the moments that made us who we are. I created the space because I believe storytelling is how we connect, how we heal, and how we remember who we are. Some stories are still being written. Some are full of laughter. Some have changed everything, but all of them matter. Whether it's my story or one of my guests, my hope is that you hear something that resonates, that reminds you that you are not alone and encourages you to tell your story too. So settle in because every story starts somewhere, and this one starts now. I'm your host, Dawn Pascal. I'm so very grateful you decided to spend your time with me and my guest this week, Talia Filippelli. Every show, we will be exploring a new theme, and this week's theme is rewriting the narrative. Today's episode is the beginning of something special. I'm joined by my dear friend and licensed psychotherapist, Talia Filippelli. And the truth is, she's not just a guest. She's going to be part of this show regularly. This episode and the ones we'll continue to have together are about the stories we tell ourselves, the ones we've inherited, the ones we made up to survive, the ones that no longer serve us. We're talking about how to rewrite those stories with intention, truth, and a lot of grace. So let me tell you a little about my guest. Talia Filippelli, LCSW, is a nationally recognized therapist, speaker, and founder of Star Therapy in Hoboken and Montclair, New Jersey. With over 15 years of experience, she specializes in narrative therapy and the power of reauthoring our internal stories to promote resilience and self-worth. As a mental health advisor for Sesame Workshop, Talia brings these skills to life through storytelling that supports emotional growth in children and families. In this episode, she explores how the stories we tell shape who we become and how to change the script when it's no longer serving us. So without further ado, let's get started. Hi, Talia. I'm so happy to see you. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Donnie. Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so excited. This is going to be so much fun. I can't wait to get into it.
Same.
So let's start with the big one. What do we actually mean when we say rewriting the narrative?
Yeah, so rewriting the narrative is about people becoming more aware of these monologues that go on internally that we all carry. We're all talking to ourselves up there in our minds all day, every day. And it's about tuning in and really paying more attention to what the content is of those monologues. What's the tone? What words are we using? Is that a critic, right? Is there an inner critic in there? Is there somebody who's a bully in there? And oftentimes we discover that there is some sort of tone going on inside that is bringing us down in one way or another. And so, this kind of work is really about helping people tune in to what's going on inside their bodies and what that inner monologue sounds like, looks like, feels like, and then putting people in a very empowered position to say, you know what, I don't like that. Or that doesn't serve me anymore. Or when I think about these things, I really feel like crap. And I don't want to feel like crap anymore. And so it's this really beautiful process of tuning in and then rewriting.
So why is this idea so transformative?
So narrative therapy is really transformative for a lot of reasons. Many people, in my opinion, are walking around with these narratives that are active, but people are not recognizing that they're happening. And so people have been living quite a long time, possibly their whole life, possibly decades or years or months, under the spell, we'll call it, of this narrative. And so it's transformative because so many people have just thought like that for their whole lives and didn't really recognize that the way that they were thinking was probably triggered by a particular event or experience that they had in their life. And it just got filed in their memory bank in that way, and it was never revisited. So it's transformative because we see people whose inner monologues were really frozen in time.
Mm-hmm.
And now when we go back to revisit some of those narratives, they're really expired. To be quite fair, they're expired, they're outdated, they no longer fit. We're in completely different phase of our lives. And so that can actually be really helpful for people because now they have some distance from the experience that created that monologue. And so diving back into it means that they no longer have to live under its spell anymore. They can change the way they think about themselves, which unlocks motivation, ambition, curiosity about who we are and what we're capable of. And people make a lot of personal growth strides from that place.
But yet the stories are triggered by events or circumstances.
Yeah.
Or just anything, feeling down about yourself. And then that not so nice thought comes back.
Well, think about it like this. Our brains like to be right. And so if we think in the same way for a long period of time, we're consistently supplying our brain with this one idea. And so what ends up happening is our brain starts to look around in our environment for evidence that supports our inner monologue. Now, that's a really dangerous place to be emotionally, because if your inner monologue is very toxic and now you're looking around, your brain is primed. Your brain's going to do this without you even trying. Your brain is going to look around your environment for evidence to support those ideas. And our brains are really good at finding them. So we will start almost like a homing device, right? We hone right in on the examples that have shown up in our life that fit with that monologue, which might bring us back to an earlier time in our lives when we felt embarrassed or we did something that we regret or wish we didn't do. And so our brain will keep jumping from memory to memory that all suit that inner monologue. So these monologues, it's not that hard to see how reinforced these monologues can become over time. And until they're really broken deliberately, I don't see too many people overcoming these monologues just like hoping that we grow out of them. That I don't see too often. It really is a process of noticing, tuning in, really evaluating how well or not that monologue fits where we are in our lives and where we want to be going. And then we can rewrite our monologue to suit and align with what we want for our future, not where we came from in our past.
Where do these core stories come from, and how early, even in some cases, can they start to shape us?
So there are some theoretical perspectives that sort of put forth the idea that we have memories even before we're verbal, even in utero. So, take that from the standpoint of inner monologues, and these narratives that go on in our minds can start from the earliest point in our lives in terms of our experiences and how we made sense of those experiences at that time. So if you had an experience when you were 5 or 6 years old in kindergarten that was shameful or embarrassing or hurtful or whatever, you have people that could be carrying around a kindergartner's way of making sense of that experience, even though they're 30.
Right.
And we don't even realize it, right? It's this thing where we're just not paying attention to it or we're not tuned into it, but we still are operating underneath that idea. And so in this kindergarten example, we'll just take this forward for a second. We may become adults that are terrified to speak in public or terrified of ever doing something that makes them look a little silly, right? The avoidance of it. And trust me, I'm not saying everybody loves to feel embarrassed, but hey, you know what? Sometimes we embarrass ourselves.
Right. And stuff happens, right?
Yeah, right. Stuff happens. We got to find a way to deal with it and move beyond it. And when we don't get a chance to move beyond, we often just stay stuck. Right. And so think about how long our lives are. We rack up a lot of different inner monologues, different stories about who we are and who we were in this setting or with that person. So I also want to make sure we're talking in a way that accurately represents the idea of inner monologues, because there's quite a few. We don't just have one. And they're from our life now as well as everything before. So it's incredible how many we can rack up over the course of our life. And if we never take the time to kind of go back and clear the deck, right? Get rid of the outdated ones that just don't serve us at all anymore, we carry that baggage with us.
So would you say that the inner stories or the inner dialogue is our initial reaction to a certain situation? That's what it's driving?
Sure, that's fair. That's fair. Oftentimes we'll be the first evaluators, right, of ourselves and our experiences, but our stories are also shaped by people in our life who may have witnessed the experience or were there or were with us after or right before. So there's absolutely supporting actors in these storylines that can either reinforce that toxic, unhelpful narrative or potentially help you reshape a better one, a healthier one. But we don't get to pick that in the moment. That's their reaction. That's our supportive actors' reactions. We just have to be aware of how much they're influencing how we made sense of that experience, because they could be amplifying toxic narratives and we don't notice.
Right. So if we're talking about resistance, then why is it so hard to let go of the old stories? Even if we know that narrative is not nice and that it actually hurts us more probably than the triggering situation.
Such a good question. It's such a good question because I think people resist. If I'm really thinking about human nature, seek pleasure, avoid pain. And people that I work with have heard me say this phrase before. We're wired in this way, and it can be really painful to have to look in the rearview mirror and look back at earlier life experiences that were painful, hurtful, shameful, whatever. Pain, like we don't want to do that. That's not something that most human beings are going to run to, and we're really hardwired to avoid that. So the resistance is hard because it's kind of like you might look at somebody and say, well, why are you resisting this? This is good for you. Let's change that. Let's rewrite this. It seems kind of so obvious as to why would anybody not want to rewrite their narrative? Why would anybody not want to notice and attune and do this work to free themselves from the baggage that they've been carrying around emotionally in their nervous system for their whole lives? But I really have a hard time placing blame on human beings for something that we didn't choose. It's how our body is wired. So just to normalize that, because we all resist. A lot of people will come to therapy and stop the resisting and really more take the approach of confronting, staring it in the face when they've hit a place in their lives where it's a huge barrier, where they have no choice but to kind of go back because they just cannot get themselves together and they're not reaching whatever goals or whatever milestones they are seeking in their life. They're not hitting them. So a lot of people will start questioning themselves at that point. What's going on here? And
what's the roadblock? What's the roadblock?
And that's when we get the phone calls, right? That's when we get people who finally call. And at that point, it's like, yes, great. Let's do the work. We are here to hold your hand and just usher you, guide you right through this process. So you're not alone, because doing it alone on your own at home, great for people who can and want to do that. But it's difficult. It's difficult. It's very helpful to have an objective person that can help guide you through. And it's the feeling of not being alone in it. If we process and do this work alone, again, for the people who can do it, great. But there's something about having a buddy, for lack of a better term, just somebody else to walk with us, to witness what we've been through and to hold our hand as we sort of, go into this new territory psychologically. It can be very scary and we don't know what's going to happen. A lot of people are afraid to feel their feelings. So people resist because they don't want to cry. They don't want to re-trigger the same pain that maybe they felt at that earlier point in their lives. They don't want to feel it again. It sucked bad enough when I went through it. Now I got to go through it again. That's kind of how people can approach this. So by making sure that we're normalizing it, this happens to everybody, and holding your hand as you walk through it, people start to feel a little bit more empowered and a little more willing and open-minded, recognizing that the juice is worth the squeeze here. Yes, we are going to go back to other memories that have happened in your past. Yes, you might cry, but you're going to still get to the other side.
Right. Well, and I would imagine it's not a one and done. It's a complex onion. Once you start peeling back, you may get past one or two roadblocks, but then you start to sort of unravel, as I would like to say, unravel the bowl of spaghetti, which is not always the easiest thing to do.
It's not. It's not. And to be fair to what you're saying, yes, there are layers and layers. Like I said before, we have an entire life racked up of different narratives and monologues that we have about ourselves, and we're complex human beings. So there's a lot there. If people are willing to come in and try maybe just addressing one specific thing, we do not need to tackle the whole ball of spaghetti at once. We do not need to peel every layer off the onion in one session. We don't do that. That would be like too aggressive of an approach in therapy. So keep in mind, we're also very focused on making sure that people feel okay as they go through. And I say okay kind of like that because you are going to cry, but it's not going to be as scary as you've made up in your mind that it's going to be. Yeah. It's just not. A lot of people think therapy is so scary or so hard or so terrifying. And it is hard work. It's personal growth is not a walk in the park.
Right.
But to come in and just start small, start with something small and see how that goes with a narrative therapist. I think a lot of people would be surprised and impressed at how good it feels to do the work.
Absolutely. And change is scary. We know that. And a lot of that comes with that narrative may not be great. And I know that I'm not in this great situation, or I always react to X, Y, and Z the same way, but it's something I know, and that change is scary. So how do you help people see that once you get over that hurdle, oh, it's so much better to feel freer and not continue to carry around that, 50-pound bag of crap on your back every single day?
So one of the things that we do during intake sessions is really try and get a good understanding of what every unique client's version of successful therapy means and looks like and sounds like and feels like. So, people have to come in and really start to talk through, what is it that I'm hoping for on the other side of this? Mm-hmm. And what we're trying to help people uncover is evidence. What can we point to that would say, this was really productive, this was really successful, or, how do we know, how do we measure that this was an effective form of treatment for you? And we outline those objectives early on in treatment. So, yours may be different from mine, may be different from somebody else, but we're really looking to measure it. And we do that by giving tools. We do that in the session, obviously, when I'm there guiding a person through narrative therapy approach, but there's also work to be done in between sessions. And that often helps people feel empowered. Not only are they in the office doing the work with us, but when they leave, the work continues. Right. And so there's this feeling of being in charge where like this thing isn't holding me back anymore. Now I'm on top of it and I'm in charge now. I'm the one leading the ship. So that process, I think, does a lot for people as they're thinking about confronting narrative therapy or trying it out.
So what do you say to clients or friends, even just in conversation, when they've had a setback? Like, how do you encourage them to still keep forging forward, that setback can be a setup for another breakthrough or, another advancement in moving in the right direction?
Yeah. So one of the things I just had this conversation with somebody the other day. The first thing I'm saying to you is, okay, so what are you meant to learn? How is this, like, if we look at this horrible situation that you've called horrible, that's just, gosh, I wish this didn't happen. And I say to you, let's look at it through the lens of, this was the best thing that could have happened to you at this point. What happens next?
Right.
So when you change the lens and you're just willing, and this is just a thought exercise, you haven't even changed anything yet. We're literally just talking about looking at your situation from a different side, a different angle, and saying, okay, what if this was the best thing that happened to you? How would we know? What would happen next? And after that, that would help prove to us that, yeah, thank goodness this happened, because if this didn't happen, I wouldn't have learned this or learned that or met this person or that person. So to me, I love a setback. I love a setback. I love when people come in with that stuff. I can't wait to get them on top of it. Can't wait. And it's the best moment ever when clients realize, oh, it's actually my call. It's actually totally up to me. I'm in charge here.
You know, and it's such a cool way of you describing it, because it's also just rewriting the narrative of what that setback is.
Bingo.
Again, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So we could tell those stories in many different ways. We can tell it from the critic's point of view. We can tell it from a bully's point of view. Right. And we can also tell it from a really empowered, I'm on top of this. You are not beating me. I am in charge of you. This is my life. And we could tell it through that lens too. And that's the one that gets people like so quickly realizing, like that part that I know sometimes in session, it's a moment. I see a look on somebody's face and I feel like they got it. They got it.
Well, that's got to be such a good feeling. Oh, obviously for you, right? Who's guiding them through the process, but obviously, of course, for the client who's had their aha moment or their breakthrough.
Yeah, that's the win-win. I mean, I'm in for the win-win. This is it's an incredible privilege to be a therapist. It's incredible. It's an incredible role to play in somebody's life, that they would let you in to their sort of deepest, darkest inner corners of their being, and to sit with them and be with them as they navigate life, ups and downs and experiences. So, you know, I take that really personally. It's something that's sacred to me in the therapy room. And seeing the look on clients' faces when they have had that aha moment, and when they're making strides in between sessions, and when their new narrative feels so natural now, they can't believe they believed that BS for so long.
Right.
It's amazing. It's why we do this work.
Yeah, I would imagine it's extremely fulfilling.
Very.
So what do you do personally for you, Talia, to prepare yourself to have that conversation with a client?
Yeah, like in the office, I'm such a nerd. I don't know how many people know that about me, because I'm such a therapy nerd. You can't see everything around me right now, but there's stacks of books everywhere. I prepare by studying. I prepare like a student. So when people come in, I want to make sure that I am the expert that they're expecting. So a lot of that is on me, and I stay abreast of research and all of that good stuff. But preparing mentally for sessions really is about, like anybody else in their job, you have to take good care of yourself in order to give good care.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, you know, fitness and taking care of myself, being active, sports, running around, that kind of thing really serves me.
So how does all of this transfer into Sesame Workshop, if we could talk about that work that you've done?
Sure. So that's a lot of narrative therapy at work. We're teaching kids, and we did this on seasons 55 and 56. We're really teaching a curriculum to the audience of Sesame Street about how to get through tough emotional moments. So in seasons 55 and 56, there was a focus on emotional well-being that Sesame Workshop committed to, which was awesome, because we are still in the middle of a children's mental health crisis that very much needs to be addressed and reversed. And so I feel a level of responsibility being in this profession to do my part in trying to reverse that trend. And I'm so glad that Sesame Workshop agreed and that they were willing to commit this, because in the storylines for those 2 seasons, the characters would go through big emotional moments. And, you know, I remember speaking with them. We talked a little bit about the emotion of disappointment, which is often really just not depicted in children's programming. And we made a point to make sure that we show disappointment, what it looks like, what it feels like, and that we don't have to avoid it. We can actually feel our feelings and get through to the other side. And kids realize feelings are actually temporary. that they come and they go, they come and they go. So if you're in a bad state right now, no, it'll be gone shortly. These things don't last forever. And we arm the kids with coping skills. So each episode features, a big emotional moment that the characters are going through. They teach a skill, they learn a skill and teach a skill to the audience, and then they practice that skill, and it gets reinforced throughout the rest of the episode when they find themselves in that big emotional moment. So very cool for Sesame being willing to show this and make this a focus, as well as for the audience. The hope is that that's the medium that we can help support the most families at once. And Sesame just has that reach. So it was very, very cool to do that. And I hope that this generation of Sesame Street watching kids grows up and in 10 years they say, I learned how to do belly breathing on Sesame Street.
No,
that would be incredible.
It's absolutely groundbreaking, and it's amazing. So as a person who grew up watching Sesame Street, one thing that I can say about it, and to its credit, was the repetition piece. Yeah. So when you talk about naming that disappointment and then the resolution or changing how you might feel about that situation, or that the disappointment is okay, right? If I'm understanding that correctly. Yep. And then the repetition of it throughout the rest of the program, I think that that's to Sesame's credit as well.
Absolutely. And they do a lot of research. They study these episodes. They, they have kids watch them, make sure that the test audiences fully understand the technique that was taught. So Sesame really ensures that comprehension is happening, so that these episodes we're really actually downloading these skills into your kids who are watching Sesame Street.
That's amazing. Yes. Ultimately, absolutely amazing. So why is there an epidemic?
So depends on who you ask. The children's mental health crisis is not new news. This has been going on. We have been aware of this. Since the pandemic, there's been more studies, because obviously the pandemic is sort of this line of demarcation in history. Right. And so there's a lot of, what was happening in the research pre-pandemic and then post-pandemic, and comparing and evaluating different populations. Kids were not in a great spot before the pandemic. Okay. So I want to point that out. Mm-hmm. And lots of different reasons for that. Some of the, ticker tape banner reasons. We could talk about social media. We could talk about divorce rates. We can talk about bullying. There's a lot of reasons why, or sources we'll call it, that have led to this. But what we're seeing is that truly the rates of suicide are very high among young people. And it's such a saddening stat to talk about, because if somebody decides that not living is a better option, right? And I always say it's a permanent solution to a temporary problem, right? That we have young people who don't realize that emotions are temporary, or that circumstances are temporary, and that whatever's going on in your world right now may not be in a year, in 6 months, in 5 years, in 10 years. And, I just think young people sometimes struggle to have that line of sight. They're not built that way either. At their point in time, their cognitive capacities are more limited than a 30-year-old's, of course. And so, unfortunately, we have a whole cohort of young people who are just suffering. And pandemic added to it, in terms of isolation or loneliness, and everybody had their own unique pandemic experience. But right. I do think that there was a lot of isolation and loneliness that young people experienced.
Even for us adults.
Yeah.
Not just the children, even for us adults, there was obviously a shift in how we were interacting with each other and connecting with each other, even our own, core families and friends, our daily interactions and chores and errands that we were doing, going to work, running a business, going food shopping. So I think a lot of us are still trying to figure out how best to, come to a new foundation and a new way of processing what happened. Because I really still don't know what happened sometimes when I think about it.
And it's what's the path forward? If you don't really even know what happens, it can feel, people I think often feel stuck.
Right.
How do I move forward? How do I make sense of what went on and get it filed in my book of life
Right.
and begin the next chapter?
Right, right, absolutely. So if we have someone here that's listening who feels stuck in their story, what's one small accessible step that they can take today to begin writing a new one for themselves?
Yeah. So I'm going to give you something that is so simple that your audience might minimize it or dismiss it as if it's not powerful, but this is very small and very, very powerful technique. When we're up there in our mind and we have our inner monologue going, a lot of people will think like this: I'm a worrier. Okay. Now, if you can just take the word "the" and put it in front of the problem, what ends up happening is we separate from the problem. In some approaches, it's called unblending. In other approaches, it can be called externalizing. But what we're doing is we're really separating from the problem, because oftentimes our inner monologue is essentially a character assassination on us. We
Right.
are assassinating our very own character. So when we put the word "the" in front, right, the worry, rather than I'm worried, the worry is making me fill in the blank. And immediately people start to realize, oh, I'm not the problem. The worry is the problem. So now we have this thing out here that we can talk about. We can give it a name. We can understand what it looks like and feels like. And now it's in there, but it's not the same as the self.
Right.
And that piece of it is step number one. And again, like, it's so small, but so powerful, that this is literally the first step we're doing when people come in to talk through a narrative therapy approach, is helping them like rewrite how they talk about the problem.
Right.
And that's
right.
one of the techniques. Just put "the" right in front of the problem.
Sounds so simple, but yet, yeah.
Yeah, it's a jumping off point. We'll call it's the jumping off point for narrative therapy. There's a lot of things that a therapist will guide you through after that. But for people at home who want to start to unblend or change their relationship with that inner monologue, using the word "the" is extremely helpful.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So simple.
Yeah, really very cool way of thinking about it differently.
Yes, exactly. And thinking differently is what we're doing.
That's the goal, right?
That's what we're doing. We're in the business of thinking and feeling differently. So it has to start with language. It has to start with separating ourselves from the problem in that very specific way. So it's not us that's the problem. It's the worry that's the problem. And then we can really pull it apart and figure it out.
Going forward, Talia, I mentioned earlier to our listeners that my hope is that you'll join us regularly and that we can continue to unravel that bowl of spaghetti, or start to peel back the layers of the onions. What do you think we'll continue to explore together? Like, what other pieces of rewriting the narrative, do you hope to share with the listeners?
Yeah, listen, there's plenty to talk about as it pertains to narrative therapy and rewriting our stories. We can get into talking about specific areas where people have struggled. Trauma is one of those areas where narrative therapy is very, very effective. Trauma can be a lot of things. Some people also misunderstand. They think of trauma is only when your life is actually threatened, but that's not the case. And there's also secondary trauma that we can experience when a close personal friend or family member goes through a traumatic experience. There's a little bit of sort of aftershock that hits the people around that person. So I just think there's a lot of different ways to address narrative therapy, and everybody could benefit from it, because there's nobody walking on this planet that doesn't have a narrative going on right now.
Right. No, absolutely. So before we go, Talia, I ask every guest the same question, because I believe the stories we leave behind say so much about how we showed up in this world. And even though you're going to be on the show regularly, I wanted to at least ask you this question once. What's one story, big or small, that you hope people remember you for?
One story, big or small, that I hope people remember me for?
Mm-hmm.
That feels so heavy.
Well, it can be heavy. We can go there.
I mean, listen, I don't know if there's a story or just I would love to be just remembered for any positive impact that the work has had, right? That the work that we do in the office has had on people in transforming their lives. I feel like I don't have a good answer for this.
Well, you've
Like a
created
bad guest.
No, absolutely not. Look, you have created such a beautiful community with Star Therapy. You always show up as your fullest, best self to be there for your clients. And you're doing groundbreaking things that haven't been done before. So to me, that's my answer for you on what your story is, because that's to me what you're presenting and giving us.
Okay, so maybe I do. There's something coming up.
Okay.
And this is not meant to be a teaser of any kind, but I've been working on something that I'm hoping will be out and available to everybody starting next year. And this is probably something that I would hope to be remembered by, because it's near and dear to my heart, and it's really focused on helping people transition into parenthood. So I'm working on a project that helps keep couples really strong and ready for a baby, for their first baby, because a lot of times we see couples really struggle. It's a lot on a relationship to bring a baby into the picture. So there is a project that I'm working on that is specifically for those people that are in the family planning phase, to like shore up any little weaknesses in their relationship and give them a little heads up on a lot of the things in pregnancy and that first year of parenthood that people don't talk about because they're shamed. They think they're alone. They think they're the only people that are experiencing it. And like, they're not.
They're not. Right.
We all deal with it. And I really want to support expectant parents. So I hope that what I'm putting together, which is, the cream of the crop of all the best techniques I found to be most effective and helpful for this group of people that are in that family planning phase of life, I really hope that sticks. So that's one thing I hope to be remembered.
That's amazing. And I hope that when you're on regularly, we can start to get into a little bit of that. If if you can share. I know that you're working on it to release next year, but that's wonderful to hear, Talia. I'm very excited for you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited about it too. It's really important to me to do this. At this point, it feels like something I have to do. Like I am just driven to make sure that this is out and in the hands of everybody who is expecting a child. So, because they deserve it. I think we don't do a good enough job of preparing people for babies.
I look at it as you have identified a need and a necessity, and you're gonna meet that need.
Yes.
So that's a beautiful thing.
Thank you. That's what I hope for.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Talia, for being here. And thank you for sharing everything that you've shared with us. And thank you, of course, for being part of the story today. And thank you, everyone, for tuning into this episode of Dawn of a Story. If something you've heard today moved you, made you laugh, or made you think, share it with someone you love. Please like and subscribe to the show. And if you're feeling brave, I'd love to hear your story by commenting below. It helps other story lovers find us too. If you want to learn more about Talia and her wonderful practice, Star Therapy, you can visit startherapy.com. That's STARR therapy.com. Until next time, keep listening, keep sharing, and keep telling your story. Thank you, Talia.
Thanks, Donnie. Take care.